I had been kind of deconstructing, if I could use that word. I had been deconstructing my Calvinism probably for about 3 or 4 years leading up to that. And as much as I liked it, and this is a common story going into the Lutheran groups. They're all going to talk about. I was having a hard time finding assurance in the Reformed Church, and it was really at that point was like I need to find assurance. I need to find a theology that can make sense of predestination, but also apostasy and all that kind of stuff that the Bible clearly talks about.
Welcome to City Square Podcast, where we talk with everyday people about faith and work. My name is Micah. If you find this kind of content interesting, then please subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast app. We are on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a bunch of others that I can't think of right now. My guest this episode is Rory Fry. He's a service sales rep from Harker Heights, Texas. He's a husband, father. He runs a Facebook page called Restored and Recovered, and he's also in the process of becoming a church planter in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. How's it going, Rory?
Nice, going great.
Thanks for joining, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm doing great. So we connected on Facebook a little while ago, and you'd actually listened to one of the episodes. So,
yep.
Reached out. We had some mutual interests and some fun connections. So we thought we'd have you on and do an episode.
Yeah, no, awesome.
So where'd you grow up?
I'm from California originally.
Oh no.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a transplant. Those pesky Californians, right, coming up over here and destroying Texas. No, I'm joking. Well, it's funny because people hear that like, oh, you're gonna bring your politics and all that over here. I'm like, I'm a conservative, man. Like we're here because we want your guys' lifestyle. We don't want to come over here and hijack it, right? Yeah,
that's right. I'm technically a transplant too, so.
Oh yeah, where are you from initially?
Grew up in British Columbia mainly, and I spent about 4 years in California.
Oh, okay.
And then got here as soon as I could. So.
Yeah, where in California?
Lancaster.
Okay, so that's more Southern California.
Yep, that's an hour-ish from LA.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from San Jose.
Okay.
Yeah, born and raised in it sounds like about kind of the same size of the town that you currently live in, about 50, 60,000 people, called Campbell, and it's right next to San Jose.
Nice. So you spent your entire life there, or?
Oh yeah.
Until now?
Really, more or less in California until we moved to Texas about 2 years ago.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you immediately settle in Harker Heights?
Yeah, not far away. I don't know if you know Belton. When we first moved here, we were living in Belton with my in-laws for a couple months. And then, I settled in Harker Heights. My sister-in-law, what brought everyone over here is my sister-in-law and her husband started a company, and they're in Troy. You don't know what Troy is. It's just a little Texas town, barely got paved roads and all that. But we didn't want to live in Troy because I work in Austin, so we didn't want to be that far out. Okay. So Harker Heights seemed like it was a good spot because of what I do. I need to have access to like major cities. So
I was wondering, based on the timing, what you were saying, I was wondering if it was COVID related or.
No, that probably had something to do with it. Like COVID was pretty tough on my wife. She was working from home with the kids, and in California, I'm sure you guys can imagine that the shutdowns over there were just out of control. So much so that like they caution taped off all the parks. Like you literally couldn't take your kids on the slides. Like, so my wife was feeling very, kind of claustrophobic with all that going on. Then the Bay Area was burning around that time too. So it was kind of apocalyptic. It was, a lot of stuff going on. It was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, and her family was here. So she wanted to be with her family. And we finally made it over here. Finally finally, hitched the wagon and took the long trip over here.
Went back east. Yeah, her rightfully
Yeah,
back east. That's where the pioneers are going now.
right. Good old Central
Oh,
Texas.
yeah. Do you like it? Do you enjoy the area?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's growing on me for sure.
Okay.
I don't like 90 days of 100, but I'm liking I like it.
Well, going from like Bay Area climate to here would be
Yeah.
brutal. Yeah.
I
So
mean, I'm
yeah,
not going to say the area is like perfect weather, but it's pretty good.
yeah. So I spent some time in San Diego as well when I was in
Okay.
California,
Oh yeah,
and
San
it was
Diego's. Yeah,
just gorgeous.
yeah.
And I had a
And
friend who
she's
lived in.
from there. My wife's from San Diego, or
Okay, nice. Yeah,
Fallbrook, which is a little area over there.
yeah. I had a friend in. Oh, I forget exactly where it was. It was a small town. I think it was in between like Sacramento and Fresno, kind of up in
Okay.
Northern California.
That's where my cousins live. Yeah, Northern California. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just that for me was the sweet spot because you had a really nice climate,
Mm-hmm.
similar to like Oregon and Washington and BC, which is where I'm from, but minus the rain. So I couldn't
Yeah,
stand the rain growing up. So
and a little bit more open spaces out there too.
yeah, yeah. So wow, what's the size of Harker Heights and like the area you're in generally?
Oh, I think Harker Heights has one freeway exit, so it's not very big. So we're basically, I mean, I want to say most people in Harker Heights are military because we're so close to Fort Hood over here.
Hmm.
So I mean, I wouldn't 20, 30,000 people, not big.
Got a buddy who's at Fort Hood right now.
Oh, okay.
So they
Yeah,
just transferred in a couple months ago, I think. So
gotcha. Yeah, it's like the
yeah,
biggest military base in the world or something like active military
really,
base in the world or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean pretty much everyone who has connections, they know about it.
they get there.
Yeah. It
uh,
makes living in this area tricky though, because there's a lot of people coming in and out.
hmm Yeah, I've got some in-laws up in Alaska, and they're
Mhm.
close by a military base as well. There's interesting issues with like the housing allowances that the
Mhm.
military grants. Basically, every rental in the area costs the same amount as the housing allowance given.
Right.
So
Right.
it can be
Well,
challenging to
that's
find for people who aren't military living in
right.
these areas. It can be challenging to actually find something affordable.
Right. Because that's set in the house prices. And then yeah, just like so our church, and we'll get into how we ended up over there, but that being a part of a small church in this area is tricky too because the families are constantly cycling through because they're getting sent out here and there. Every 6 months, it's like a new
Yeah,
family's going somewhere else, and that's new for us. Being in the Bay Area. No, I mean, very very little exposure to that, so it's kind of interesting just the
mm,
type of relationships you want to build with people around here because it might not be all that
gotcha.
permanent. Yeah.
So you grew up then, like most of your life in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Do you have a fairly extensive religious background there too, like, or um,
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, I'm like your classic church brat.
so yeah, in church Sunday, and if you
Sunday, Wednesday. Yeah.
yes, everyone used to have a Wednesday night service.
Yeah.
Um, so what type of church was that you grew up in?
So, I mean, my parents kind of, I mean, I want to say we kind of grew up in churches that were Baptist that had dropped the Baptist.
Yeah,
So they were
I'm
Baptist, but
I'm familiar.
yeah, I mean, you were probably alive in the '90s when they were all ditching the Baptist title, or whatever. So, I mean, non-denom Baptistic churches, but initially and my dad still has some roots with the Brethren Church. I don't know if you know much about Brethren churches.
A little bit. They're an offshoot of Mennonite, right?
No, I don't know about that. I don't know much about Brethren. I don't have any adult experience with them.
Mm,
Um, The services are a little different. They do what's called breaking the bread. That's like what they see as the true service. So like our services with the sermon and worship and all that kind of stuff, that's not really how they see it. They see the really kind of based on 1 Corinthians 14, like this kind of free flowing breaking the bread communion service, and it all kind of revolves around that.
Is that like a full meal as well?
No, it's no.
Hmm,
That'd be cool though, like an agape meal or something like that. Yeah, I have stories about stuff like that too. But no, no, just a regular communion.
interesting.
Yeah, so they're like dispensational free will, dispensational types.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm. I'm
I
gonna
think.
look them up later.
Yeah. Schofield might have come from them.
Schofield.
Yeah, and then
That
I
makes
know that one
sense.
of the main John Lennox. I mean, you're probably familiar with John Lennox, the apologist. He's a brethren.
Okay.
Yeah, just a
I'm
little bit
familiar
there.
with. It might be a different, actually different movement, but up in BC, I got connected a long time ago. I got connected with a church planting movement that was partnering with Acts 29.
Okay.
But what was interesting is they were Mennonite brethren in like their origin.
Hmm.
Yet they basically took on well, not the identity necessarily, but some of the characteristics of Acts 29.
Okay.
I don't know if it was chicken or egg. I think they may have already done that. But they became more like non-denominational slash Baptist and
Uh huh.
slightly reformed in certain areas.
Uh huh.
Um, it's an interesting movement because I talked to a few of the guys. I'm like, how do you get from there to there? Because Mennonite Brethren is like
Yeah, it seems like a hot.
free will and pacifist and
Uh-huh.
like old fashioned in a lot of ways, but they've just kind of become more mainstream, non-denominational in a lot of ways, I guess, before they
Yeah.
decided to partner with them.
Yeah. Well,
Anyways,
in America, it's hard to not pick up on some reform influence being because it's such a big influence in America. It's hard to not have some of it.
I mean, the very first settlers were reformed,
Or
essentially. Yeah,
yeah.
I, I'll be interviewing a an Anglican priest pretty soon, and
Okay.
but I might give him a little bit of heck for the Anglicans being the source of all the problems in
Right.
America.
Right.
So, so okay, so you grew up in like Baptist churches, and
Yeah.
I know that you used to be reformed of some type. When did that switch happen?
Yeah. So that was probably, I mean, a lot later on in life. I want to say maybe 2011 or so, 2012, was kind of bouncing around like non-denominational Baptist churches or whatever. And I was given these Bible studies, so I was running these small groups, and I was going to go through the Beatitudes, and I was looking for free resources online, and I stumbled across this guy John Piper. I was like, "Oh, cool, free sermons!" And I started listening to him, and I was like, "Oh, that's
Hmm.
pretty cool. It's got some depth to it. It had Bible behind it, and I definitely appreciated all that. So that was
Yeah.
not even really knowing what that was. Someone's like, "Oh, that's called Reformed theology." I was like, "Oh, like yeah, that's Calvinism." Oh, okay. I had no idea. I just thought it was interesting theology, or whatever. But my dad
Yeah.
was actually getting into it around that time. My dad would still ever to this day deny being a Calvinist, but very, very predestinarian. So him and my mom now go to OPC. They're Orthodox Presbyterian now.
Okay.
But yeah, so my dad went Reform, then I went Reform around the same time.
Now, Orthodox Presbyterian, are they? I'm not as familiar with them. Are they
Yeah, they're not as.
liturgical
Yeah, yeah.
but
I mean, yeah,
reformed? But the
Westminster.
reg. Okay,
Yeah, they're
regulative
Westminster.
principle. Regulative principle.
I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about them myself.
Okay.
I mean, not like regular principle to the extent that they're only singing hymns or anything like that.
Hmm.
They do use instruments and stuff, but I don't. Have I ever seen a Christmas tree there? I couldn't tell you. I've only been
Hmm.
to their church once or twice.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm a little more familiar with like the PCA and
Yeah, PCA is
the bigger one,
big one.
or yeah. There is I think an OPC church in town here, but um, when I was in my like searching phase, I didn't actually ever really dip into Presbyterianism. Intellectually, I
Yeah.
found it like I'm like, oh, maybe I could land there,
Uh-huh.
but because I went from like Free Will Baptist, Independent Baptist to Southern
Yeah.
Baptist, like non-denom mega church with
Uh-huh.
slight Reformed influences.
Yeah.
Um, like they loved Piper. I could never get into Piper. I really wanted to because all the
Oh,
cool
really?
guys were reading Piper. And
Oh,
I
I
got
love it.
Desiring God and I made it like halfway through and I'm like, I don't like it. So at the
Yeah.
time I'm like, I'm just dumb, I'm like, I can't understand this. And then I'm like, now that I'm enlightened and on the other side, I realize that I'm actually very smart and smarter than everybody else. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't do. I will very rarely would put on Piper nowadays, but yeah, I mean, the Christian hedonism, I still, kind of finding your worth in God. I see the value in that kind of stuff. But yeah, Piper's like a joke. He's just like a cheesy old man kind of personality. Probably a great
yeah,
grandpa.
yeah,
I know his son doesn't
I'm
like him all that much. If you guys follow TikTok.
I do not. I am not on TikTok, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, because his son's kind of hell bent on tearing all this down. So that's
Yeah, it's
unfortunate.
too bad.
Yeah.
So you are now in the LCMS. Tell me how you
I
got from the CRC, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Christian Reformed Church. So yeah, that would be, I guess, the the confession I identified with before coming over to LCMS, which is the Dutch Calvinist brand. So
hmm
kind of like you, like I had always figured, I'd end up in Presbyterianism, but the church, the Presbyterian churches, have just never really attracted me. Never really been, yeah, not much of an appeal. But yeah, the Christian Reformed Church, more liturgical, confessional, three forms of unity. So that's Heidelberg Catechism, Belgic
hmm
Confession, and Canons of Dort. Now, unfortunately, with them, they're on the progressive side of things. Like very Calvin College is, I don't want to say gone full blown college. I mean full blown liberal, but they're
Going their
going that
way.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I was working for them. I was a music director with them until COVID hit, and then we shut down like the week before COVID. Um, because a lot of elderly at the church.
Yeah.
So the pastor was like, "Yeah, we're going to shut down because the people who would still come to church are the elderly, and they are the ones who are the most, susceptible to it." So they shut down pretty early. And I think I was technically on staff through like, I don't know, May or June or something like that. But so just fast forward a little bit, when we settled in Texas, it took us a while to find a church. It took us 2 or 3 months, and then we were like, "Hey, we need to get plugged in." Still mostly doing the online stuff. Like checked out one Reformed Baptist church over here. Did a couple services. It was, seemed nice. Didn't click. Um, there's no CRC around here. The closest one's in Austin. Didn't want to be involved in a church that could potentially be an hour plus away, and then
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be part of a progressive denomination in progressive Austin. So were
hmm
we were seeing, the kind of the what does Christ call it? Like the yeast of the Pharisee. We were seeing that going on. Being around progressive theology a lot, it's infectious. So I didn't want to go back to that. So I don't even know how, but just started watching Lutheran services online, and really enjoyed it. Um, 2 or 3 months, really just the way the guys would preach, the content of their preaching and stuff like that. Just there was something about it, and we finally got to a place where we're like, yeah, we need to finally go to service. Um, and so there's a big one over here, Emmanuel Lutheran Ministries. It's like three or four that became one big one. So we were going to go there. And one day we're driving down one of these country roads over here, and we see this sign, Fortress Church. And I'm like, oh, what's this about? And we search it, and it's an LCMS. I said, oh no, we don't gotta drive to Temple, which is a half hour away. We got an LCMS 5 minutes from our house. And so we walked through the doors, and just really kind of felt at home that one service. Just like we liked the liturgy, it was easy to follow. Lutheran preaching is pretty simple stuff, pretty basic stuff, clear cut law and gospel. And I guess internally I was really I had been kind of deconstructing, if I could use that word. I had been deconstructing my Calvinism probably for about 3 or 4 years leading up to that. And as much as I liked it, this is a common story going into the Lutheran groups. They're all going to talk about. I was having a hard time finding assurance in the Reformed Church, and it was really at that point was like I need to find assurance. I need to find a theology that can make sense of predestination, but also apostasy and all that kind of stuff that the Bible clearly talks about. So going to Fortress Church, the vicar, he was a Reformed Baptist guy too, and he says, "Dude, I mean, I come from that." And he put Jordan Cooper's book, The Great Divide, in my hand, and I read that. I think I read it in 2 days, man. I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is everything I've been looking for," and like all this stuff I was already kind of seeing. I guess Lutheranism was where I was headed, So, so long story short, kind of been involved with Lutheranism. I want to say like the last 2 years or so.
Nice. I think I have The Great Divide on my
Yeah,
bookshelf. I haven't read through it yet. But that honestly was one of the big things, or one of the barriers that it wasn't a barrier to me, because I came from like a Reformed Baptist church ish, and election and predestination was one of those things that I had come to accept.
Right.
And so that part was actually an easy switch. I had issues, that I had to work through with baptism and the Lord's Supper, the big ones, right? Absolution was another one that was I had to study through.
Yeah, let's just get to the spicy stuff, I mean,
the big 3, right? Or the big 2 at least. But I found that there were some good similarities. There were some things that carried over.
Yeah.
It wasn't like learning an entirely new language in every area.
I think, well, and for me too, it was kind of like, this might be, depending on who's listening, this might be a dirty word, but I had a bit of federal vision in me already. So that was already they were already talking about like objective assurances. So that was already bouncing around my head, like looking at the sacraments as an assurance, as something that you can cling to in your moments of doubt. So the pump was already kind of getting primed when it came to that. It was just really making that, like, the baptism saves, like actually letting 1 Peter 3:21 say what it says and not turning it into something that it doesn't say all the time. We're like, oh, I know what it looks like, but it doesn't mean that, right? Kind of taking those things at face value and understanding more, just getting even more sacramental about it and understanding that sacraments are how God communicates his grace to us, and he communicates his grace to us in a tangible way. So once I wrapped my head around that, I was like, oh, this isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah. It took me like about 2 years of study and arguing with a friend who, asked me what I believed on baptism. That was his intro. Well, it's let me look at my church website real quick, because I grew up as a pastor. Yeah, I grew up in the Baptist tradition. I've been in, I went to Bible college, and I was in the, a pastor's kid and that sort of thing. So like complete church brat. And I was that was just the air I breathed, and the water I was swimming in, and hearing different language was kind of jarring. That must be Catholic or something. That's weird. And I still bust out, oh, you didn't go far enough from the Catholic Church, ha ha ha. So he
and then I would say too, reading, it really was the Jordan Cooper, and then the vicar challenging me, like, our views of communion and that kind of stuff, like him really challenging me, like, look, man, like we don't compromise at this point, like really, really pushing me there. And, church membership, like you need to affirm this all catechism. Like that was a breath of fresh air to me, because from coming to something that was pretty progressive to coming to the LCMS, which is not that firmness, it was like a drink of cool water on a hot day.
Hmm.
So, he
In
challenged me.
Texas.
Yeah, yeah, in Texas, yeah. So he challenged me, had me read that Cooper book, and then they were starting newcomer classes, and after service, the clipboard to sign up, he put it right in my hands, and I said, "Yep, I'll be there." And it was a small catechism class. I think it was like a 6-week class. I read the entire book of Concord through that 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Just really, because that's how I am. I'm a big theology nerd, so it's, if I do it, I steep myself in this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, really the formula of Concord, though, specifically the section on predestination, because the way the Lutherans talk about predestination, it is different than the way that the Reformed talk about it. And it's just assuring, it's comforting, and it just always points you back to the scriptures, and it points you back to Christ. And that's one of the issues with, like, the canons of Dort. It's a good document and all that, but it says almost says the exact opposite of what the formula says. Canons of Dort says we can't know the invisible will of God, so we can't derive our
Mm-hmm.
election from the invisible will of God, but we derive it from the change in ourselves. We look at ourselves for the change in
Right.
ourselves. While you go to the formula of Concord, says we can't know the invisible will of God. You can't discern your election from the invisible will of God. All we can know about all we can know about election is what the scriptures tell us. And I was like, that's the good stuff right there, man.
Yeah. I forget what you said. You said it just a second ago, and it brought to mind one of the hymns we sang this Sunday, which we're recording this on the after the first Sunday of Epiphany. I'm not sure when this is going to air. It'll probably be in a few weeks or in a month, within the next month or so. But one of the songs was "O Morning Star, Fair and Bright," or something like that. And one of the lines in there, "For Christ goes with us all the way," just
Yeah,
hit me. And I'm like, man, that is just so good. Like that level of assurance that we have, our
right.
faith has these external things that they can grab
Yep,
onto, baptism and the Lord's Supper, where he
yep,
objectively is calling us.
yep.
We don't have to worry if we're elect or not.
Right,
That's comforting,
right.
not a source of
Anxiety.
conflict and
Yep,
anxiety. And
yep.
like, and I hear that a lot. Like I was talking to a friend of mine. I didn't come to Lutheranism while I was having any sort of crisis of faith.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't looking for something, because I wasn't looking for something to help with assurance,
Uh-huh.
because at the time I wasn't struggling with that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know.
see, mine wasn't so much a crisis. Mine was just more like theologically, like I just the
Hmm.
I guess just and I don't want to be negative, right? Like I still have a bookshelf full of reform literature, but
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like the backflips and stuff that you got to do to get to some of this stuff sometimes. And I was at a point where I was like, look, man, the Bible teaches apostasy. This is clear, but it also teaches that we have assurance. Like,
yeah.
how do you make the two of those up? You read the Bible. You take it in one hand, you take it in the other hand, and you let the Bible talk. So it was really that dance. I'm tired of that dance,
Hmm.
and Lutheranism doesn't make you do that dance so much. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'd say that is one of the. Um, it's not an accusation in the sense that it's mean spirited, but one of the issues with assurance that for people who are maybe more similar to Luther in his sort of personality, someone
yeah,
who is anxious, someone who is, what's the word? There's a specific term for it, basically, but I can't think of it at the moment. Um, but essentially, it's someone who is anxious and sorrowful and needs pastoral assurance.
Uh-huh.
pastoral reassurance. They
Yeah.
don't need, they need the gospel. They don't need the law. There's some people who,
Right.
their pride is such that they need to be broken down by the law.
Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
are others who need the consolation of the gospel.
Yeah. We got that. Others of us have our heads beating us up all the time, telling us, "Oh, you're no
Yeah.
good," all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there's always that going on. But yeah, mine was really, it was more theological, and I've always, I was always one of those Calvinists who read a lot of Martin Luther too. I just missed the importance of reading it, but I'd do the James White thing, read Martin Luther like a Calvinist, oh, Martin Luther's really a Calvinist. Melanchthon corrupted him, or the spiel
Yeah.
that goes along in those two.
Call the Lutherans the Melanchthonians.
Yeah, when it's funny because we call Luther, or we call Melanchthon the crypto Calvinist, which is it's like
Yeah. He started compromising a few things for the sake of like unity,
yeah.
and then like Chemnitz and others called him out on it and said, "Stop it."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, we could. That might be a whole other conversation. I just think it was it. I think Luther was this strong personality who was really a leader type, and then he dies, and then Melanchthon, you're his boy, and Melanchthon's just
Yeah.
not a. He was more of a scholar, more of a scholastic, whatever, and it kind of fell in his lap. So I think he was like, I need help, and he
Yeah.
was John Calvin reaching out to him, so trying to. Yeah, I mean, I know people are that kind of mean on Melanchthon. I like Melanchthon. I like the stuff that he writes or wrote. I think was a brilliant guy. But yeah, I mean, there was seemed to be
I'm
some.
not opinionated enough to have, super negative opinions
Yeah,
about, and I'm opinionated, but like I've not read enough of like the whole, I want to get
yeah,
into Chemnitz. Chemnitz is like one of the like theologians with like
uh-huh.
very little peer, according to a lot
Yeah.
of my friends.
That's
Um,
next. That's next.
yeah.
The key with Chemnitz is finding his books for under like $60. So it's.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's my next purchase. I've got a few, I've got some, not Chemnitz, but I've got some other good commentaries and Lutheran resources. But like, I've got a shelf back there that's got, also, it's got Driscoll on books on it still.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
So we try to be ecumenical here.
Yeah.
For everyone out there, we don't hate you if you're not Lutheran.
No. No. Yeah.
John, my co-host, is a Reformed Baptist, and
Mm-hmm.
we've been friends for like a decade, so we're still
Yeah.
friends, even though.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I've read John Calvin in the last 2 weeks. I'm reading the Second Helvetic Confession right now, so it's
Yeah.
definitely still interacting with Reformed theology, no doubt.
Yeah.
And it was a major part of my life for 10 years, so it's not something that
Yeah.
you just shut off. It just. I think it works best, and I've heard a lot of people talk about this. Jordan Cooper and then just other people. It's Lutherans work best with the Reform, and we know where we agree and we know where we're different, and we don't try to pretend like we're eye to eye on a lot of this stuff because we're just not.
Yeah. You can have unity over the essentials in some ways, and then there are other places that the lines are clearly defined, and you can still be friends with all
Right.
sorts of people, even if they're a different persuasion. Like all of my best friends are Reformed Baptists of some type,
Oh, yeah,
or
sure.
Reformed of or Southern Baptist or whatever. It's all.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
picky about my friends' views.
No, it's tough. It's definitely it's tricky because that's my case too. If I don't have any Lutheran friends outside of the church, or that I go to, or people that I met on Facebook. I have like 2 or 3 local Lutheran friends. I mean, I've been in Texas for only a couple of years. I only have 2 or 3 friends here in general, right? But they're all church friends. So everyone back in California, Reform, more really Assembly of God. A lot of them were Assembly of God guys over there. I was kind of always did my own thing, whatever. But yeah, I'm charismatic, kind of Baptistic charismatic types.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Paul Vanderklay?
I'm not sure.
I believe he's CRC in California. He's kind of in what used to be known as the intellectual dark web, like the Jordan Peterson kind of orbit.
Oh, okay.
I was just curious because I know he's got a church called, I think, Living Stones in California, And
I'm not sure.
a friend of mine kind of keeps up with him, so I see videos of his every once in a while. But
Oh, okay.
I, yeah, he's a CRC pastor in, I don't think it's Bay Area. I forget exactly where he is.
It wouldn't if it's
Um,
big. It's not Bay Area because there's only two in like the San Jose area. There's one in San Jose, then there's one in Palo Alto, and they're both really small.
yeah, I need to look it up right now though
But with
because
a name
it's
like
bugging me.
Vander, yeah, he's probably a CRC or
Yeah,
some. Yeah.
well, and he's been talking a little bit about the coming potential split in the CRC.
Oh, they're gonna have to because they're talking about the younger guys are talking about rejecting the cannons of Dort, so they're getting
Oh
ready to
wow,
make some big moves here. And then I I don't know if they published it yet, but they were I think getting as it stood when I left. Their statements on homosexuality was that the Bible, basically the Bible doesn't say that homosexuality is a sin. It's homosexual acts that are a sin. And I
right.
heard now they're going even further left on that one to say that none of it's a sin. So I don't know if that has happened yet or if that was the next push in that denomination.
That's going on in the PCA as well, I believe, because
Yeah,
there's the movement, they call it what, side A and side B, I think,
yeah,
and the Revoice conference where they're
yeah.
talking about whether the desire itself is not necessarily sinful, but just
Right.
the action.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's going on in a lot of places.
yeah. I mean, that's our context, right? Luther and them were fighting a way different battle than we are. We're fighting our battles with
Yeah,
progressivism for sure.
it's interesting. Okay, so where is this located? Oh, it's in Sacramento.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it
Okay,
would have
so
been
he's in
somewhere else
Sacramento.
then. Is it a
But yeah,
CRC?
he's pretty popular in the as far as I know, he's a conservative, one of the conservative pastors
Yeah,
there. But he's
and I
pretty
would say
popular.
most it was really the pastors and then the younger elders that were on the progressive side.
Mm,
But as far as the people in the church, they were like all good old boys, like conservative Christians.
so the seminaries are
It's the
churning out the
similarities, yeah. And I think it was one of those deals, like, and a lot of them were older, and they'd been going to that church for 20 years. And I think it was that
mm,
mentality, like, no, this is our church, no matter what kind of deal, even if it's, you brought in a progressive pastor, so you had, yeah.
yeah,
So great people, a
yeah.
lot of good quality friendships, but it's just, unfortunately, it's a slippery slope with the theology. And to be honest, I didn't. Most of my theological studies are old dead guys, so I didn't really keep
Yeah.
up with any of the. I had read some of the stuff that Calvin College was putting out, but I was reading, I was reading guys like Abraham Kuyper and like the old guys that've been dead for a while.
I generally recommend old dead guys
Yeah,
versus, so because I think my experience was kind of like a mirror of yours in some ways. I was in a Baptist church, not in uh it's non-denominational, but it's really part of the SBC, so they don't call themselves Baptist really. And I was reading all the guys who are still alive. So Piper,
yeah,
Keller,
yeah,
and kind of the ones that were in like the Gospel Coalition orbit.
yeah.
And Driscoll, of course, was kind of around that time as well. This was back in
Keller's not. I
2011.
thought Keller was a Presbyterian. No?
Was that?
Isn't Keller a Presbyterian?
Yeah, Keller's Presbyterian, Piper's Baptist.
Yeah,
You
Driscoll was
had
about.
Driscoll was non-denominational.
Oh, okay. Which is a
So and
big,
I
yeah, it's like emergent
yeah.
church coming around during that time. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
yeah,
he kind of left the emergent church and went to more, traditional kind of, he started orbiting the Gospel Coalition
uh huh,
and was in those circles. So those were guys I was reading, but they're all alive.
uh huh,
And then they started doing stuff that
uh huh.
was bad, or maybe they started going a certain way that I disagreed with or whatever.
Yeah,
So that experience coupled with, getting older and more theological exposure was like, all right,
yeah,
read the guys who everything about their life,
Yeah.
because Driscoll was hugely influential on me leaving independent fundamental Baptist land. But then he started becoming a power hungry,
Yeah.
narcissistic abuser
Yeah.
type guy.
There's been plenty said about him on that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing,
So
Duke.
you're not going to be surprised.
Yeah.
You're not going to be surprised if like we basically know everything about like Spurgeon. Like we know he
Yeah.
overworked himself. We
Yeah.
know he likes cigars, which is great.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
know, he was a Reformed Baptist.
Right.
So it's like there's not a whole lot of surprise there, but
No. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. I definitely never really, outside of like Piper, I never really latched onto that whole the new Calvinism or young, restless, and reform. That was,
yeah,
like I said, I was always reading like the primary sources, like the Luthers and the Calvins, and I mean, of course, Spurgeon and stuff like that. But even now, like I'll read Justin Center stuff from Cooper. I'll do like Fisk I'll do like an audiobook from Fisk or
yeah.
like Wolf Mueller or something like that on occasion. But still, it's going back to more historical stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I technically do listen to some guys who are alive now. So,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
thinking about
like
that, I follow Cooper's channel, but I
yeah,
do find that it seems to me that the LCMS and the kind of the denominations that are at least similar, maybe or maybe not in fellowship, like the Wells, they're not in
uh-huh.
Walter and Purple fellowship, but I do find that those seem to be a little more resistant to the celebrity pastor phenomenon
Yes,
than
yeah,
how I was kind of in the
yes,
major denominational church for 2 years or 10 years or so.
yeah,
So
because that's a good point because it's LCMS has got tons of smart guys, but if we were walking down the street and say we brought up Jordan Cooper to some random Christian, they don't have any idea what we're talking about.
yeah,
But if you bring up John MacArthur to them, oh, I know John MacArthur, right? Like they have celebrities. It's
yep.
just not. It's not really our thing. I guess. Yeah, it's just a
Yeah,
little
I'm
different.
wondering. I really am curious. Like, I think I have my own like half baked theory as to why that is the case. Do you have any idea? Because you've been in both worlds.
No, well, I mean, I think it could be a few things. The Lutheranism is newer in America, right? That Lutheranism's only really been around for a couple hundred years in America. That could be part of it. We're a lot more hidden. We're a little bit more private, I'd say too. Um, there's a lot of busy work in the reform world, so they have their hands on a lot of different things, and that's one thing. Lutheranism has really mellowed me out. Like I just don't do the busy work that I used to do. So it could be
Interesting.
that. It could just be our guys aren't as convinced they need to get on every show and be doing this, doing all that kind of stuff that the reform guys do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know there are a few guys, at least in the LCMS, like Brian
I mean, they're
Wolfmuller,
visible, right? Yeah.
who they might be considered our version of the
Our
celebrity
version of
pastor,
celebrities. I mean, yeah.
which even then is not the same. And I wonder, my half baked theory has something to do with the nature of the service and the fact that in like a 45-minute sermon, there's more time for the pastor to become kind of the star of the show,
Yes,
even if
that's a good point. Yeah.
he doesn't intend to, because I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
guys who are
Yeah.
not in it for themselves, but they still become popular because they're
Yeah.
a really good
Sure.
speaker. Yeah.
Like, I mean, like John Piper, I mean, the dude's a bestseller. He donates all of his money, right? So I'm not accusing any of those guys of being power hungry or anything like that. But maybe you're
Yeah.
right because it is more of this. Our sermons are 20 minutes long, little homily kind of deals. Theirs are
Yeah.
45, 50. They're real they're packed with all this stuff that they're almost like lectures, almost kind of, right? So yeah, maybe, yeah, that could be. That could be. It's a different
Yeah.
culture all around.
Yeah. And I do think that like Reformed, obviously the first pilgrims and settlers were of the more Reformed or
Yeah.
Baptist persuasion.
Yeah.
So that has been kind of more baked into the culture of
Yeah.
Christianity in America than
Yeah.
Lutheranism has been.
Yeah.
So
It's just reform, Calvinism. It has more of a foothold in the country than Lutheranism does. And
yeah,
I mean, there's probably a lot of factors, but the two kingdom thing, there's probably a little bit of that going on. Lutheranism, I think, is a lot more pastoral than maybe American evangelicalism is very, very outward focused a lot of the time, more evangelistic. I mean, it could be, who knows? It could be any of
Yeah, that is
these
interesting.
combination of things. Yeah.
I think that would be a fun episode, doing like some sort of roundtable with different
Oh yeah.
denominations, talking about like what they view as strengths and weaknesses on each one.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
that might be fun. Let's see.
I mean, every once in a
Um,
while, I will on some of these Facebook pages. I'll see like a Chad Bird quote or like a Brian Wolfmueller or something, but it's not. It's very rare. And I'm in my back of my mind, I'm always like, "You guys know he's not a reform. That's a Lutheran that you're quoting there, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
do you know, or you just Googling you found a nice."
I do. I follow Chad Bird on Facebook, and I think it's hilarious that some people will be like, "Are you Catholic?" Like some one of their friends will share a quote or like a comment or whatever, so they'll see it and then they'll start following the page and they'll be like, "Wait, what did you say about baptism?" So, and then I imagine I think he's got some very good, well worded comments that he replies with, and I'm like, I bet you he has a folder like full of those,
Yeah,
like, saying,
yeah.
okay, this is why I say what this is, and he's very kind. He's not
He's great with
ugly.
words. He's a great communicator.
Yeah, yeah, he's not ugly about it, but some people I think get a little bit of whiplash when they're like, what did you just say? Something explicitly Lutheran comes through. So
Yeah.
yeah. So you mentioned that you are in the process of becoming a church planner in the
Yeah.
LCMS. Can you tell me about that? Like, what's that process like, and how did that even get started?
Yeah. So I guess we could maybe start with how that got started. So
Yeah.
I was actually initially thinking about doing so Jordan Cooper through the AALC, right? So who for people who might not know, Jordan Cooper is not actually LCMS; he's AALC, but
Yep.
it's a smaller church denomination that we're in altar and table fellowship. Like they can come preach with us, we can go preach to them, we can take sacraments at each other's church. So he's really one of few seminaries that's offering a fully online MDiv. So I was going to go that route and do the MDiv, and I was getting the emissions and everything squared away, and I told my vicar about it. He's like, "Oh, cool. Well, let's talk sometime. Come, let's talk." So I went to his office and just expecting to sorry, my phone's just expecting to talk about it a little bit. And then he asked me, he says, "Well, you could do that, or have you ever heard of the SMP? Have you ever heard of the SMP?"
Yeah, specific ministry pastor, right?
Yeah, specific ministry pastor. So it's a program where basically it's a 4-year program, and they whatever church you're involved with, you would be groomed to be the pastor of that church or a pastor at that church.
Yeah.
So as we were talking about seminary, he's like, "Would you ever consider doing the SMP?" And I was like, "Oh, I mean, yeah, but I thought that was like a really rare thing." Like, I wasn't coming to him being
Mm.
like, "Hey, how do I get into SMP?" Right? It was more just, "Would you consider going this route?" And I said, "Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, that would put you in a church." So the normal seminary experience, you do about 2.5 years, and you do a vicarage. SMP is you're doing vicarage from day one. You're doing vicarage the whole time, and you're doing the schooling on top of it.
Yeah.
So he's, "Would you be interested in doing that?" I said, "I mean, yeah. I mean, if there's an opening, I'd love to do it." So it turns out that so Pastor Jerry, that's actually the guy who planted our church, because my vicar is an SMP.
Hmm.
So my pastor who planted our church had started another church in Robinson, which is in the Waco area. He's looking to retire. He needs somebody to come take over that church in the next couple of years. So that would be the end goal, is if the district signs off on me, if the Texas district signs off on me and assesses me for church planting, I would take over that church plant once he retires.
Gotcha.
And in a couple years. Now he's a crazy guy. He's actually talking about planting another church before he retires. So we'll see if we'll see how what all happens. But yeah, so really that just kind of, I mean, I want to say kind of fell in my lap. Yeah, so God opened the door there, obviously. Um, and yeah, so
Is that through Concordia in Austin?
no, through the seminary. So St. Louis. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Concordia here is it's just a university.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm misremembering. I think because one of the associate pastor at my church went through the SMP program and
Oh,
just finished, I
nice.
think, last year.
Okay, yeah,
So
good to know.
he was our vicar for several years while he was doing that, and he's a second
Yep,
career guy. He's
yep,
been at this church for 19 years, but and they just he's someone who's been raised up through the church
right.
and went through I guess it's St. Louis.
Yeah, St. Louis.
He was doing stuff in Austin, I thought, but maybe that
Maybe
was like
undergraduate
distance
or
learning
something
or
like that,
something.
or could it be some other
I
courses?
don't know, but yeah, I think he just finished his studies like last year.
Yeah,
Um, so
it's
he's
really
got
kind of
he's
geared more towards second career kind of guys,
yeah
and it's really big. I mean, the way I look at it is they created the program because they had to fast track people. And they had to. We got a spot here. How are we going to fill this? It's hard. It's hard to call a pastor. And it's like we can only pay you part time. Well, who's going to want to take a part time pastor call, right? But if
yeah.
it's you're pastoring part time, working part time, doing school while you're getting trained up to do this, it's a non traditional route, but it's a route where there's a need. It's a
Would
route where there's
the So in theory, once like just theoretically, of course, because stuff might change, right? But like
yeah.
that Waco church, would you be expecting to be bivocational of some type?
I mean, I think for a while, yeah,
Yeah.
for a while
Okay.
they
Is
yeah. I mean, if they get, I mean, who knows? If they get 15 more families in the next 2 months, and maybe they might have the salary there. But as it stands
yeah.
right now, it would be bivocational. They would pay my schooling, which is awesome,
Oh, that's
But
great.
yeah, I'd be working a normal job and then doing that on the side.
Is bivocational training or is it anything of like that part of the SMP, or is the
I
SMP
don't think so.
more okay?
No, I think SMP it's just seminary.
Gotcha.
So it's just
And
more
is that 2 years of seminary? So would that be an MDiv?
4 years.
4 years? Okay. So
Yeah.
you've got, and then would that be 4 years until you're ordained then? Or,
I think I think you get ordained at like 2.5 years,
okay.
and then you have another additional 1.5 years of schooling. It's not an MDiv though, so if you're someone who's really intent on having the MDiv on your wall, it might not be the way to go.
Yeah.
You can get the MDiv, but it's like an additional 4 years
Oh,
or something
wow.
like that too.
Like
So it
four
just
more on top.
you could go do another 2 years and then you'd be a general pastor. Um, but I mean, I don't want to say that the seminary is not important for me, but the call is really the external call. So if we wanted to get in all that too, so
Yeah. I was going to ask about that because I grew up in, the Baptist movement. I moved to a couple different ones over my lifetime, but it was all Baptist.
uh-huh.
I would say Baptist, Pentecostal. I'm not aware of like the specific process in the Reformed, but there is a difference in how you're basically called to ministry. It's
Yeah,
very very focused, and
yeah,
there's other parallels I think with finding the will of God for your life. It's very
yes,
internal. It's very
sure, yep,
subjective. Whereas I was kind of I don't know, nonplussed about it. I think when I found out about how it happens in the LCMS or how it happens maybe in the larger Lutheran world, which is
yeah,
not an internal call, but an external call,
yeah.
right?
So that's what I was wondering. Like the episode you guys just did on church planting, I don't know if they talked too much about that, and I don't know if
Mm-mm.
they've gone through
It's not a
training.
it's not a category in like the Baptist or non-denominational movements,
Yeah,
as far as I can tell.
because I know people who have started churches and they're like, we had a small group and it became a church. Like it's
Yeah,
not that. No, so there is an internal call. Obviously, they don't want to call guys that don't want to be pastors, but
Yeah.
it's different. It's maybe in the non world it could be too like, oh, I'm going to go across the country and start a church in Indiana because I feel like it. Or I don't know.
Yeah.
Ours there's an external call. There has to be a church calling you to do this. There has to be a church that is bringing you bringing you to be the leader of that church. So that's what we mean by external call. So you and me can have the internal call. I have a desire. I want to be a pastor. I want to be in the ministry. But if there's no external call, you're not going to be a pastor. You're going to have
Yeah.
that desire, and it's a good desire. But if no church is calling you, then you're not going to be a pastor. So in general, the is that my work phone going off? Anyways, in general, the LCMS is it just seems from the little I know, there's a higher standard for their pastors and for all this.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you went traditional route, I don't think anyone's going to be a pastor without an MDiv. I mean, there might be exceptions, but you're doing MDiv, you're doing 2.5 years, 1 year vicarage. SMP, you got to get signed off by the seminary. You got to get signed off by the church. I'm having to get signed off by the district. Like it's a bunch of stuff going into it that's involved, and that's all the external call there. The church, the denomination, the district is calling you into that.
Yeah, I heard it. This might not be completely accurate, but I've heard it described as, I've got a friend who's considering this because his pastor has specifically said to him, "I think you make a good pastor. I think you should think about this. I think you should look into this." And that is, he wouldn't have necessarily pursued that without that sort of external recognition and prompting, right?
Right.
So, and I feel like that's. I want to get back to the seminary piece, but I feel like that is like they talk about Luther's theology and Luther being a very earthy man and talking about vocation, everything's very grounded.
Yeah.
And realistic. And there's not, he talks about the enthusiasts and how they're looking internally for everything.
Yeah.
Whereas we have a very almost external focus in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we're more objective. So that might be a good way to do it. It's like, say you take the enthusiast, right? Hey, why did you start your church? Oh, I felt like I needed to do this. This is something that I had to do. So then they go somewhere, they start a church, they start their own denomination, right? It's not like us. We feel that tug, but then it's like, no, there needs to be an objective call. There needs to be a church, a physical church, part of this. Like you're not just going to go and start an LCMS church. Like that stuff just doesn't happen,
They don't, they're not going to be like, oh, sure, come on in.
A little neighborhood church and call yourself Lutheran. Sure, you could do that, but you're not going to get, you have to get chartered in by a bigger church. You have to get sent out by a bigger church, right? Like, so you're right. It's all very grounded. It's all very, there's a lot of accountability, right? So I'll be under the pastor. I'll be under my S&P supervisor. I'll be part of a cohort. I'll have my professors that I'm accountable to the district, all this kind of stuff. So it's all very objective and all very tangible. So it's, you're not just flying by the seat of your pants.
I think you can see that in other areas too. Like, the sacraments are an objective external thing.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. And I'm not trying to like bag on other denominations, but it's interesting just how that theme is kind of present in all sorts of areas of, that you maybe wouldn't even notice until you're looking for it.
Yeah. So, I call it paint by numbers, bro. It's like, you want to find Christ? Come to church. He'll meet you at the table. It's not this, you got to go climb a mountain. You got to go. No, you want to find Christ? Go. He meets you in the waters of baptism. He meets you at the table. Yeah. This is the body. This is the blood. It's like, it makes it not easy in a bad way, but just like it's streamlined. It's cutting out all the.
Christ goes with us all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to listen to that hymn again. It's good stuff, man. So that's I'll go back to the seminary thing. So that's one of the things where when I was early on, I was kind of considering Lutheranism, but I wasn't ready to make the jump.
Uh-huh.
That was one of the things that I was actually very impressed by with the LCMS specifically, and it might be the same or similar in a lot of other Lutheran
Uh-huh.
denominations, at least the conservative ones. But one of the things that I was really impressed with was the seminary requirements and the
Uh-huh.
language requirements. It was like Latin, Greek, Hebrew,
Yeah.
like multiple years of each. And I think
Yeah.
German in some programs as
It
well.
could be. Yeah.
So I was like, wow, I'm like, that is awesome. Like I know that like my pastors are very well educated,
Yeah.
just in the like either the St. Louis or Fort Wayne
Yep.
seminaries. You know, they've got
Yep.
some like apparently. I'm not sure if it's still going on, but there's actually an Orthodox seminary that sends their seminarians to take Greek at
Oh, okay.
one of our Lutheran seminaries. I don't
Uh,
know if it's St. Louis or if it's Fort Wayne.
yeah.
But yeah, this is a place that's training Orthodox pastors, and they're like, okay, go and take your Greek from the Lutherans, from the
Yeah.
Germans over there.
Yeah. It could
It's
be too,
great.
just that those are smaller seminaries or something like that, and they're, sending it to Concordia because it's more of an established, organization or something like
No, it's
that.
Lutheran superiority.
Yeah. Well, even that too, like even to get with the seminary, like to get into the seminary for S&P, it's like three entrance exams. I had an Old Testament, New Testament, um, systematic theology tests, 100 questions, right? Like I had to. I'll show you one of the books. Like these are the books, like 600, 700 page books. They're testing you on, like so.
Yeah.
Even that stuff, it's very, yeah, very, very serious stuff that you got to go through. I don't know if we're going to learn the languages. I think that would be if I went the additional 2 years for the masters, we would learn the languages. Um, we're doing all the New Testament, all the Old Testament, but I think we do it in English
Mm.
just because the nature of the call. Because until you get that general pastor, you're really only called to your one church. A general pastor can take a call anywhere. S&P is really kind of grassroots. You're being trained, you're being taught specifically to be a pastor at one church. So it has some pros and some cons.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
know our vicar who has become the associate pastor. I think for the SMP for him, it was family ministry, essentially, of some type.
Okay. Yeah.
So like that particular program essentially was the big part of his call.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating.
No, I mean it's all really interesting. It's kind of ideal for like church plants too. So I think, I mean, I don't know, obviously I don't know the future, but I could see myself, going to the S&P, pastoring for a couple of years, and then I've done I've done a lot of like street ministry, a lot of recovery. I've been in recovery for 11 years, so I've spent a lot of time in drug rehabs and psych wards, just the pretty places a lot of people don't go to just because they don't have any good reason to go there. But I'm in recovery, and you want to find drug addicts, go to those kind of go to those kind of places. But I could even see myself like having like a downtown mission or something kind of like that, like a
Hmm.
mission church that geared to reaching the homeless and the drug addicts in like downtown Waco or something like that. I don't know if that's something that Lutherans do a lot, but that's definitely something that's been on my mind for quite some time.
You have an internal call for that right now.
Yeah, it's well, that's the thing too. Even if all this falls through, it's like I'm still doing this stuff to an extent. I wouldn't be running a church, but like discipling people, working with people. I do. That's just it's kind of my personality type, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I wouldn't be doing it either way. I just wouldn't. There wouldn't be the external call, and it wouldn't be at a pastor level. It would be more of a mentor or a
Yeah.
sponsor kind of.
Does the SMP require like a bachelor's?
I have one, but I don't know if it does. I've heard that it does, but I've also heard that it might not. I think as long as you can pass the entrance exams, I think that's the key.
When do you find out?
About the entrance exams?
Or
Or
about like when if you're accepted or not?
oh man, I'm waiting, checking my phone every 5 minutes, waiting to get that
Okay.
call from the district. So yeah,
Okay.
that's
So
really the last step.
you're hanging around just waiting. Fun
Yeah.
times.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Well,
Takes
that's
every
really
minute
interesting.
seems like
That's
an hour
cool.
right now.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, if it comes through, you can hang up on me. I understand. Okay. Cool. So you are. Let's talk about your ministry then, because you have a Facebook page, and I
Uh-huh.
think a group that is
There's a
connected to
group tied
that.
to it too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about that a bit.
So the page is restored and recovered. Yeah, gosh. It used to be called Reformed and Recovered. I changed that though once I made the jump over. Um, so it's post memes, kind of like a lot of pages, post memes, quotes. I make videos. I used to do podcasts just about every week, but I've been even kind of slowing down with that stuff with the Lutheranism, because it's like, do we have to be called to that too? I have a lot of questions about podcasting, and
Yeah.
like how's
Like
that work with you? Like,
in a teaching role or something. Like,
yeah, like is that something your pastors talk to you about or anything like that, or do they
uh,
know what you do? Or
well, I have talked to him about it. He actually he said he really enjoyed the episode, because he's like, he got to know me more, through the episode even.
yeah,
And so no, he hasn't mentioned it, but we're really focused on, in this one in particular, or this for City Square podcast. I've got a buddy of mine and I are working on a channel that's going to be specifically Lutheran, but this is
mhm.
more like Joe Rogan, like scaled down Joe Rogan with regular people.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so we really enjoy like hearing people's faith journey in
Hmm.
particular, but also I like learning about people,
Uh-huh.
and I like sharing my story as well, because like some people have found it interesting, and
Yeah.
usually we all find ourselves interesting, right? So, but the trick is finding if people find us interesting,
Yeah.
so we really just wanted to, we were interested in this kind of these topics, faith and work.
Uh-huh.
He's Reformed Baptist and was a church planner for 7 years. He's an entrepreneur. My friend John, my co-host, he's an entrepreneur. He does a lot of like web development and social media, and he's in the tech space, business owner, that sort of thing. I'm in corporate America.
Mhm.
I'm now a Lutheran. I'm not an entrepreneur in any sense of the word. I'm very much, I'm not ambitious. So we're very different in what we do.
Uh-huh.
We're different in our, specific denominations, but we were good friends. We still have a lot of shared interests. And one of that was just talking to people.
Yeah.
And, how did you get from point A to point B? Like what if like point A is fundamental Baptist and point B is, Anglican priest, or Anglo
Right.
Catholic priest or something. It's like that's a jump. Like let's go on
Yeah.
that journey. So I love that sort of thing. I love talking theology, even though I don't consider myself like a scholar in any sense. I'm severely out of practice because I've been in kind of the corporate world for 10 years.
Mhm.
I went to Bible college, so I was going to be a pastor in the Baptist church, and I basically started becoming like an evangelical, I'd say, instead of fundamental Baptist, as
Uh-huh.
I was in college, and so I'm like, I can't, in good conscience, like go and work like be a school teacher or a pastor in one of these churches, because I would be lying, I can't submit to this type of stuff. I can't promote it, right?
Yeah.
So I moved from there and I went to, eventually got to I thought I was supposed to church plant as well. I had an
Yeah.
internal call that turned out to
Uh-huh.
not be,
Yeah.
anything. So, anyways,
Yeah,
it took like let's see, 15 years or so for me to end up as a Lutheran,
uh-huh.
um, and you know, other people are having even crazier journeys than that.
Yeah,
So mine was relatively tame in
yeah,
comparison, but I still enjoy talking about it with people and talking about their story as well. So we just decided we've actually had this podcast in the works for it's right now we're recording in January of 2023. We've had the channel since 2021.
mm,
But I had a kid and moved and
sure.
we're house hunting and all that stuff in between, so we kind of had to
Yeah,
delay it.
yeah,
So
life. Yeah,
yeah. So I don't view this one particular as any sort of teaching
word
ministry.
and sacrament or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's not. There's no pastoral type ministry happening in this one necessarily.
Right.
The other one, there's nothing against uh, being a lay theologian.
Yeah.
Um, so I've got lots of friends who, at least at the very least, Facebook friends who some of them are in real life friends, um, who are involved in other channels and stuff like that as well. So there's one
Gotcha.
called Scholastic Lutherans,
Oh, okay.
um, which I don't know if
Yeah, seen a couple of their stuff.
yeah. So I'm familiar with those guys. We're connected online and stuff in a couple groups, and so I think there's a lot of value to have that. I think
Yeah.
to contribute because one of the things Jordan Cooper wants to do, Dr. Jordan Cooper, is have Justin Sinner and his podcast and other things, and not just about him, but the other guys who work with him as well. Just he wants
Right.
to resource Lutherans, right? The
Right.
way
Yeah.
that there's Ligonier and there's monergism.com and there's all sorts of reformed
Right.
resources out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's not the library of Lutheranism, and
Right.
like you said, we're a younger when it comes to America and
Yeah.
the United States, we're a little younger, not as
Yeah.
widespread. We're not baked into the DNA, so we
Right.
want to put stuff that's good out there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what we're thinking. This one is it's conversations. It's the goal isn't to be polemical in this one. There's other channels for that, so
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. So I guess like back to the restored and recovered thing.
mhm.
I used to do a lot more, and then really kind of mellow. Coming to Texas is it's mellowed me out in a lot of ways. Um, and that's it's good because I'm married. I got 2 kids under 6, right? So
Yeah.
this stuff's good, but that stuff's good too, right? And
Yes.
I've definitely been that guy who's just running around with a chicken, like a chicken with its head cut off, just doing ministry all day, every day, right? And it is what it is. But I mean, really, what I would kind of boil it all down to is restored and recovered is it's my way of putting recovery out there for people who want it. But it also kind of satisfies my theological leanings too, because I'm very much into theology. So the page was really created, the theology is really kind of meant to kind of draw people in and then hopefully build a connection with them to offer some sort of support, whether it's for drugs and alcohol, um, or something along those lines. So I really kind of use the theology and stuff as a conversation piece to try
Yeah.
to connect with people to help them or help one of their loved ones. Or I've connected with people, all sorts of different people in different ways. So that's really what it's about. I get lost in the weeds a lot of the time because
Hmm.
I'm a little too theological for my own goods,
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
But really I would say now, since moving to Texas, it's really kind of been more discipleship and mentorship, and just helping walk people through the different challenges of life. Whether it's helping a guy get baptized or helping someone who's going through a divorce, being there for them, supporting them, just offering that support, that accountability, that discipleship. So I don't know shoehorn all
Yeah,
that into there. It's a recovery and a theology page that's geared towards me, hopefully meeting some new people and helping some people. So that's
nice.
yeah.
Guys, make sure you check out Restored and Recovered on Facebook.
Yeah, and
Restored and Recovered.
I've had groups. We've had regular recovery meetings in California. We had I think 2 going at once. So we would
Nice.
weekly do more kind of recovery stuff. But since moving to Texas, it's just been kind of more just really just Facebook ministry kind of stuff.
You'd have to start from scratch, basically, moving to a new spot.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of rethinking a lot of that stuff too. Like, is that even it's a part of my life. Like, it's always going to be a part of my life, but like, how big a part of my life is it going to be? Um, that's what's been kind of nice about, if I could rabbit trail here for a second. That's what's been nice
Go for it.
about Lutheranism is I don't do anything at church. I haven't warmed a pew since I was in middle school. I've always been involved in
Mm-hmm.
music or leadership role of some sort. So it's been a lot of that kind of stuff. Just enjoying being a church member, and I don't always feel like I have to be a leader. I don't have to be the head of something all the time. It's if the church calls on me, like I help out with the multimedia and stuff, the church calls on me to help with that. It's like, well, I'm sure I'd love to help out. But I just don't feel this pressure to always like be a leader. Like I used to always kind of feel like that was like a cross I had to carry, whether or not I was
Mm-hmm.
interested in it.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there before. One
Sure.
time, I think it was about a year. My wife and I were working at a church. Well, we were working normal jobs. We were just married, and we were at a church plant, and we just were never in service together.
Yeah.
Like I was on the worship team, and set up and tear down,
Yep.
and she was running the kids ministry most of the time, and
Yep.
just we were very involved, and it was like, wow, we haven't
Yep.
sat together in church in like a year. Like,
Yep.
maybe that's not the best. Like maybe there should be breaks, and you should
Yep.
check in on your marriage, and not just
Dude,
constantly pour
100%.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the busy work. I feel like there's evangelicalism and it has a bit of a busy work going on. And eh, there's, it's good to do the work, but the work can be detrimental too.
Hmm. That's like I've heard it contrasted as Mary versus Martha.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
You
popular
know,
one. Sure.
like you need both, and
Yeah.
but sometimes you need to be Mary, sometimes you need to be Martha.
Yeah. And it's
You
been
know,
good because obviously we're gearing up to if I get this call, we're going right back to that. So it's been nice to kind of just,
so
you
yeah,
know,
you're gonna do 4 years of school. You have 2 kids under 6.
yes, if my face doesn't fall off through all this, it'll be a miracle, man. But
And a job. Oh gosh. I almost went to do a master's at DTS when I was
uh, oh yeah,
probably about 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And I got rejected for their counseling program, but that would
okay,
lead into being an LPC, or a
uh,
licensed professional counselor.
okay.
And then like a month later, we found out that we were expecting our first. And I was like, whew, thank you, God. Because I am not that high capacity. I don't think I could have done it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I've done it a lot before. Like, I mean, working my job, CRC, I was not full time. I was 20 hours a week, right? So I'm in the trades. I'm in fire protection, so I fire extinguishers, fire alarms. That ain't a 40-hour a week job. That's usually a 50 an hour a week job, right? So that, the church, school, doing the recovery stuff, doing the kids, it's not trying to do all that, but you just have to be intentional about every moment of the day, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are expecting you to perform all the time, and it,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's good. There's a guy I follow. He's a strong man. His name is Brian Shaw. And I don't know if he's a believer, but I don't think so. But one of the things he talks about is just being present, because he's got a very demanding schedule. He's got like three or four different businesses, a
yeah,
busy YouTube channel, a podcast, two
yeah,
kids, two young kids, and he's training for World's Strongest Man.
yeah,
And he talks, I'm actually wearing one of his shirts. But he talks about being present, like with your family. Like when you're with your family, be with your family.
Yeah.
Like put the phone down, all this sort of thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so it's good.
That stuff's not easy, man. Yeah, but it, and that's the thing too. Like with this potential call, it's like none of this, we wouldn't even be at this point if my wife was not on board. They would, nope. If wife's not on board, they'd put the kibosh on it right away. And I would too. If she wasn't ready for that, it's not something I would drag her through. She needs to understand what it would be to have a husband in the ministry, right? So it definitely it's going to be some teamwork. Yeah. Going to be some teamwork. Yeah. And yeah, it's not something we haven't done before, so
Right.
I just enjoyed not really having done it like this for the last couple of years. It's been nice to play video games and, kind of be a human being. And
yeah. I think it's wise. You got to bake that time in where you can relax and maybe, and I'm not one of these, I play video games occasionally. I don't have the time that I used to. And I even found that I don't have the interest that I used to, even if I had the time. I just, for whatever reason, maybe it's because I'm addicted to my phone. But yeah,
I just stuff online, so I'm sure that takes a good amount of your spare time.
Yeah, well, like now most of my podcast time, because I used to commute to work. I used to work in an office and commute, and I had 35 to 40 minutes to listen to a podcast or whatever one way, right, and going back and forth. Now I work from home. Thanks to COVID, like our teams went home and discovered that our productivity was better. Like even though there's some elements of the office that you miss, like the rub it up against each other and team building and kind of rapport, our numbers are way better. So it's like that's justifies us being home. So now I don't have any podcast time. And now that I'm doing a podcast, I have even less time because I'm actually listening to my own stuff. So it's good though. I enjoy it, man. That's the thing that me and my friend, it's like we want to make content that we enjoy. If other people enjoy it, then that's great. But it's got to be, in this particular case at least, it's you've got to enjoy what you're doing primarily, or else if you're if we're gonna clickbait and chase YouTube views and stuff, then this is not the topic to do that.
Oh right, I know. Yeah, and I've seen people who were getting lots of views, and they're kind of covering a lot of the current event stuff, a lot of the woke stuff, and it's just, that's not me. I care about what I care about, and now if I was running a podcast and it just blew up one day, it's like, but that stuff doesn't happen organically like that. You got to do the clickbait. You got to do the catchy topics and all that kind of stuff, and that just seems like a lot of work too.
Yeah, we try to clickbait just a little bit.
Yeah.
Accurate, not too inaccurate, but
I guess I found you guys because that debate with Mark, I'm going to butcher his last name. Gadgetin, what is it? How do you say it?
Gadgetin, you got it.
Yeah. Because I'd watched that debate live, and then I saw you guys had the debate review with him. I was like, oh, nice, cool, man. So, and you guys just seemed like,
no, that's awesome. That really is.
Yeah. Just seemed like down to earth people.
Mark he's local. He lives about 40 minutes away from me. Mm-hmm. He's actually the one who introduced me to Lutheranism. So
you guys know each other.
Yeah. We we go back, shoot, how many years now? I think about 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe even a little bit more than that. We used to work together on the same team. He moved on to a different job, and he's 45 minutes away from me so we don't see each other in person a lot. Even though we're both in DFW, we're just on opposite sides of DFW, right. And it's a massive place.
Yeah.
But so he's been on as a guest, and then he also did a King James debate a while back, and that was one of the first episodes that I recorded with him. Was kind of a a recap of that one. So then
Oh, okay. I don't think I watched that.
but we uploaded that as an unlisted video like right away before we were ready to get started with this podcast, actually.
Gotcha.
And then he was on doing the second debate, and I was like, oh, we'll do another recap. But
Yeah.
we had built up a backlog of episodes that we were releasing, so that's why we released like 3 of his in 1 week. I think a couple
Gotcha.
weeks ago.
It's kind of cool though. It's kind of like a spotlight on. I don't know.
Yeah,
To me, that debate was to me that debate was important. Lutherans don't do a lot of debates, so anytime I see one, I'm like, yeah, it's good that we're getting out there, and props to him because that Jeremiah guy, that apologetics dog's pretty big, man. That guy runs around with some Jeff Durbins, and he's running around with some of those pretty big hitters. But
yeah,
I mean, I thought Mark did a good job, and I was encouraged by the whole thing. So
that's awesome. Well, he watches this, so he'll see this and get a really big head now. No.
Now he just needs to do one on the supper. We need to get someone who's going to do the Eucharist.
Yeah. Well, he and I are working on, as Mark is the friend I'm working on the channel with, and we're going to do baptism. So we're going to do bite-sized theology videos on baptism to start with.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. But I think the Lord's Supper is one of the ones he wants to debate if the topic comes up on Standing for Truth. So that same channel. So, but he's said that he doesn't want to debate more than once a month because it takes a lot of prep and.
That guy, that channel, that dude does like 4 debates a week or something. It's crazy. I don't know, single or something maybe, or
probably.
I don't know. I mean, I watch a lot of debate. I'm a commuter, so I want to say I watch not a debate every day, but just about every day I watch a debate. So I stumbled upon that channel, and it's just like this guy does everything, man. Has like every topic. Mm-hmm. But again, Lutheran debates. There's like you search Lutheran debates on YouTube, you're gonna find like 3 or 4. Like Jordan Cooper's got 1, Mark's got his 2 now, and the Lutheran Scholastic guys I think did one on Eastern Orthodoxy,
perhaps
on the Gospel Truth, and then there was like this other one that was just these 2 random guys. But there's really it's just not something that Lutherans do much.
Yeah, I've seen a few on like these kind of panel debates. Maybe they're not necessarily a debate, but they're more of a discussion. And they'll be like, "Oh, this guy's a Lutheran." I'm like, "I don't even know who that guy is." But because I'm slowly getting into the subculture of Lutheranism online. And so now I know like some of the names, of the guys who are lay level, but they're active in the theology scene. So.
Yeah, it seems like more dialogues than moderated debates or whatever. I mean,
which is
stuff with a lot of people, but not.
Yeah, I kind of tend toward the more dialogue stuff. I'm pretty non-confrontational in my real life, so I kind of bring that over to
I am too, and I don't know why. I don't know why I like the debates. I think I like it because it's structured. Yeah. Which I'm not really a structured guy, but it just seems like the dialogue, like what we're doing, you and me, we're just spitballing it right here. It'd be different if you and me came with something prepared, right? Opening statements, like if we'd bring our A game. We're just having a good time. Two dudes talking about something that we love, right? It's just something about the forethought and all that goes into it that I like. I personally would probably never debate. I've hosted 2 in the past, but I would never. I don't think I'd ever jump in the ring just because I'm not that quick with comebacks and
That's exactly the same. I'm the guy who's like a week later, like, darn it, I should have said that.
He said this. Yeah,
that's why I do like doing kind of the debate recaps because then like Mark calls himself a slow thinker, because he wants to like process and think through things, and so he likes kind of going through the debate again, watching it. And, expanding on it or whatever. So I enjoyed it.
There was one thing that Jeremiah made a crazy claim, and he's like, "Oh, you guys take your covenant or your your covenant signs from Isaac, not Abraham. And I said, what? Where did you get that from, man? Like, I would have been like, show me a Lutheran source that makes that claim, because you were making
Yeah.
stuff up right now. But
I
that
think he
was,
mentioned that too. He's like, I should have called him out on that or something like
yeah,
that.
because
But
that was just like maybe the Reform, maybe the Presbyterians, but no, we're not doing that circumcision. We're
yeah.
not building our infant baptism on circumcision like they do.
Yeah, it's a plank, but it's not the foundation.
Yeah. But I'm
Yeah.
sure, and when you're in the hot seat in the debate, I'm sure you have so many things going through your head, and it's probably easy to miss a thing here, miss a thing there. So, but other than
Yeah.
that, no, I thought he did.
I
I
know
thought it
it.
was really good.
I definitely would. Fun times. All right, so let's see. This is kind of like the lightning round then. What are
Okay.
you currently reading?
Oh gosh, I'm all over the place right now. So I guess like book wise, I'm finishing up the second Helvetic. Um, and I'm reading that just because we're in this Facebook group, and all the Reform guys are they're always talking about it, how it's like the perfect compromise between Lutheranism and Calvinism. So I'm like, all right, I got to read this. Yeah, but so I've been reading that. I'm working through another one from Justin Sinner on the Eucharist. I'm reading through another one from Concordia on it's like on just church doctrine or whatever. I read comic books. So I'm reading through a couple. Like I like Alien and Predator stuff, so I'm reading through a couple of those comic books. And then I have 2 audiobooks that I'm kind of jumping back between right now for Jonathan Fisk and then Chad Bird.
Nice.
Yeah, so I can get kind of scattered with it sometimes. So
Yeah, I've got like 4 books that I'm currently reading, and then I've got a bunch more for Christmas that I want to read, but I haven't read anything in the new year yet. So
yeah.
people are doing their recaps on the best books. I read 47 books in 2022, and I'm like, did I finish one? I don't know. I started a lot.
Yeah, I think my Goodreads I put 60, but I did. Yeah, I did a lot of books last year.
Nice.
Because with my commute time, I utilize the audiobooks, so it's
Yeah.
good way to burn through some pages on an hour drive or
Yeah.
whatever.
I've got a buddy who I actually did an episode with him, James Cross. So if you check that one out, he's a delivery driver for a plumbing supply company, and he listens to audiobooks and YouTube and all that sort of
Yeah,
thing all the time. So
yeah, you have to, because you
yeah.
get lonely on the road, man.
Yep. So cool. So what Bible versions do you use?
Yeah, so I guess oh, it's funny if I'm doing my recovery stuff, I usually I use the Life Recovery Bible, and it's the New Living Translation, which it's just not a good translation, but it's
Some people like it, I've heard.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't want to throw shade on it, but I mean, I guess if I'm doing like serious study, I'll go to ESV or the NIV.
Cool. What about hobbies or stuff you do for fun or relaxation I mean, obviously theology is a bigger one, but
Yeah, it's a
is there
hobby.
stuff you hit up for just relaxation outside of that?
Yeah, so I like to read science fiction, so comic books, science fiction, uh, play Nintendo here and there, Nintendo Switch. We're a big Mario family, so play the Mario Brothers
Nice.
stuff. Go fishing on occasion. Um, yeah, so that and watch movies. I mean, movies is yeah. I'm in the movies when I have time, and TV shows when I have time. But most of the time, once the kids go to bed, I'm just like, you know.
Seriously. It's like I'm just like holding my breath for nap time on the weekends,
Yeah.
Please go to sleep. I just need, and then I'm like, I could do so many things.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Well, man, I really enjoyed this. Thanks for taking the time
Yes,
just to
sir.
chill out and talk theology and all that sort of thing. That was fun.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Maybe
Yep.
we'll actually get into like vocation and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I know.
maybe next time you're on, you'll have an update about the SMP. sort of thing. Hopefully a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah. We'll stay in touch. We'll stay in touch through Facebook and all that too. So
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like the video. And if you know someone who would enjoy it and isn't aware of this channel, then please share it. That will help us grow the channel, and that'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun. It'd be good for us, good for you. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you can leave a comment below telling us, I don't know, who has the best facial hair or something. I don't know. So until next time, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.